I think that in life, however you do this, in whatever ways this manifests, you sort of have to be like a trailblazer. You have to carve your own path and, pursue your own passions, like the things that you actually care about in life. I feel like all growing up, people try to tell you that you have to do it this way or this way, and, the thing you're trying to pursue or the direction you're trying to go in isn't the most consistent or secure or stable, or in some way that if you follow their advice, things will turn out better in the end. And while I wouldn't say this advice is necessarily useless or unfounded, I mean, obviously, it's probably based on these people's experiences, these people who care about you and have made certain mistakes in life. They might sit there and try to tell you, like, hey, like, don't do this, I tried this and it failed for me. But the reality is that you only get so many years, you only live so much life. Like, at a young age, especially, I feel like we live under this almost like notion that we have more time than we might actually have. It's like if you're a 15-year-old right now, you might think I have 80 years ahead of me. I can figure it out later. I really like this. I like this clip by this guy named Bob Proctor. He has this hourglass on the table, and he's talking about, the only thing we are cognizant of, the only thing that we are able to be aware of when it comes to time is the bottom half of that hourglass. Like we already know what's happened. We already know about the sand that's come into the bottom of the glass, but it's impossible to say how much is at the top of the glass. It's impossible to say how much time we have, how we're going to be able to spend that, what curveballs are going to get thrown at us. And so you have to be a trailblazer and you have to carve your own path and do what you care about, not simply because, you know, it's going to be enjoyable for you, not simply for anything like that, but really, truly, because you don't know when you'll be able to do that otherwise. You don't know what time might come along. There's never a perfect opportunity. Like, if you're really passionate about something, if you really care about something, the time to start is now. I mean, maybe don't, like, quit your job and try to go be a movie star or something, but, like, in some way, you should always be moving towards your goals, whether that's in a straightforward way or whether that's in, like, trying to get to a stable place in your life where you have plenty of time to work on that specific thing. I mean, like, I think people get in this mood where they want to, like, drop everything in their life to pursue this thing they care about, and it's very natural. Like, I've always wanted to be an author. Like, that's been a dream for me my entire life. Like, I want to write books. I want to write fiction. Like, it's something I really, really care about, and I've been doing it for years. But it's like, obviously, you still have to focus on your priorities. You still have to worry about your career and making money and having a stable, consistent path going forward. So, my mother, she's an accountant. She has her own accounting business. I'm going to go into accounting. I'm going to make sure that I have a career set up for myself. But obviously, in my past, in my free time and in the time where I can express myself and do whatever I feel like, I'm going to be writing. I'm going to be pursuing that. I'm going to be working towards that. Even if it seems like a massive time commitment, like I'm working a lot and it is a big deal. I might have to sacrifice aspects of my social life. I might have to, lose some sleep to make this dream come true. It's worth it for me because I could genuinely die at any time. It's not something we necessarily like to think about. Like, I don't have any. I mean, I've talked about how I have health issues, but, like, they're not the type that are going to, like, kill me overnight. They're more like just autoimmune, like, quality of life issues. But, I had two cousins growing up, and when in 2014, so when I was younger, like, I didn't know them especially well, but they died in a car crash, died in a car accident. The older cousin, she was like 17, so she was sort of a new driver, and it was a very bad road. Like, a car came right out of her blind spot when she was trying to turn, and yeah, both of them instantly. It's like they thought they had their entire lives ahead of them. Everyone thought they had their entire lives ahead of them. You could never imagine, you could never, like, expect that anything like that could befall you or the people you care about, but it's totally possible. Like, nothing is guaranteed in life. No amount of time is guaranteed, and we live in a dangerous world. Like, even something as simple as, like, driving, at any time I could make some oversight. I could turn the wrong way, and I could lose my life, you know? So it's like, all we have is the present, you know? We live in this very short, like, almost ethereal time space, like this 1 second that's just passing over and over and over. And that specific time, that time right now is all you have to pursue your dreams and your passions and to make it come true. And it doesn't have to be about, you know, the status associated with that thing. It doesn't have to be about the money that... I'm an idiot. I gotta place chess for this. But it's like, it doesn't have to be about any of that. Sometimes you just genuinely care so much. Like, my father, you know, that was his thing too. Like, he really wanted to be an author. He wrote books his entire life. Like, it was something he just innately really cared about. And he never got published, and he was never around very much, to the point where when I got older and that became my thing, like, I cared so much about learning how to write. He wasn't really there to support me at that. But it's like, that's been my thing ever since I was a kid. Before I even knew what writing was, you know, I'd play with my, like, Legos and my Imaginext and create grand, large battlefields, you know. I'd, like, act it all out and, like, create entire stories in my mind. And, you know, I was kind of a liar as a kid, you know, because I had a very overactive imagination. I was always telling people these stories that were being conjured into my mind. And so I know that for me, this isn't about being an author. It isn't about being that kind of person, that specific career path for everything else that goes along with it. It's genuinely just because I care so much. Like, it's just such a passion for me. And the reality is, when I sat and thought about it, and I was like, okay, let's say I were to die next week, and I start working on my book right now, and I die before I ever get published. Like, is that something I'd be okay with? Let's say it's like I waste a lot of time, and I finally get around to finishing a book when I'm like 25, but I die before it ever gets published. Would that be, you know, something I'm comfortable with if that were to happen? Like, is the effort and the strain and the mental exhaustion of writing this book, am I doing it to get published? Or is a somewhat larger, more meaningful chunk of that just that I care so much about writing that it actually makes me happy, and whether or not anyone ever reads my writing, it's still worth it for me? And if the answer is yes, if the answer is like truly, really, like, this fulfills you, then don't worry about, you know, what might happen someday. Don't worry about the results or like the product of your labor, because, you know, it'll happen when it happens. You know, it'll happen when it happens. Maybe it won't turn out in the largest possible way. Maybe it'll take you a while. Maybe it'll take you 50 years of just working whatever job you have and pursuing your passions on the side. But I think that pursuing your passions is worth it, because it is something that is going to be deeply and innately motivating. It's something you'll always be able to come back to. It's like, maybe there will be times in your life where you're not motivated necessarily to, like, you know, hit the gym or to, you know, make forward progress in your career path. But it's like something as deep and meaningful and personal as your dreams, like, you'll always come back to them. Like, at least me personally, I've always come back to them. Even if I go through periods where I'm, like, less interested, or, you know, I feel less inclined to spend a lot of time on some certain endeavor, like, I always come back around to it because it's something so deeply connected to my soul. I feel like I was meant to be an author in a way. And if I were to die, never having written anything, whether or not it got published, the fact is that if I had never at any point in my life put in the effort to write something I was proud of, to really create something and put something out into the world, I'd be disappointed. Like, let's say I die and I'm in some waiting room to some sort of afterlife and I'm reviewing the footage of my life. Like, that would be the regret I have. You know, they've done all these studies in hospitals, like deathbed people, like people on their deathbeds, and they ask them, like, what did you regret? You know, like, if you had to tell a young person, like, how should they live their life differently? Like, what things do you regret from your life that, like, genuinely you wish you could go back and change? And what I've always found interesting about those is, like, in my experience from all the ones I've seen, they never really regret the things that they did. You know, they're not sitting there being like, oh, I just almost died. What was I saying? Yeah, they're not sitting there being like, oh, you know, I shouldn't have, you know, asked out that girl. I shouldn't have, you know, crashed my car in that ditch. I shouldn't have gone fishing that day because, you know, I should have been home with my family. Like, even massive mistakes people make in their lives, like, surprisingly, that when they're on their deathbed, they don't seem to regret that, because like at least it's an experience. At least it was them, living their life to the fullest. But what they do regret is the things that they didn't do. Almost universally, they regret not taking that chance. They regret not taking that risk. They regret not forging their own path, not being a trailblazer, and not chasing their dreams. It's not about reaching the dreams, it's about at least trying, at least caring enough to be in the pursuit of that. And so if there was anything I would leave you guys with today, it's that you have to chase your own dreams, or you'll be that, dying old person regretting it.